Is this thing on? It is. All right, and welcome back to the Bandwagon Sports Show. I'm your host, DaRock, and we have another NFL Sunday in the books here. Week 6 is done, and I'm going to be giving my 5 this week. I'm going to go with 5. I'm going to go 5 winners, 5 losers from this morning, this afternoon, tonight's Sunday night football game. We are back here. It's been a minute since I've been doing these winners and losers, but I'm going to try to do this now every Sunday. So if you enjoy talking football, talking all sports, make sure to drop a like on the video. Comment your winners and losers, who you think I'm going to go with, or who you think had the best or worst Sunday. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, and let's get into it. All right, so the first winner that I'm going to start with here from Sunday, I'm going to go with, if it focuses, might have it too close, the Baltimore Ravens. So the Ravens, they win 30-23 over the Washington Commanders. Commanders have been pretty hot as of late. Jaden Daniels has been playing really well. People have been really high on him, and he still played well today. 269 yards and 2 touchdowns for Daniels. But Lamar Jackson proved why he is the MVP, defending MVP, will most likely win another one in his career. Threw for 323 yards, including a touchdown. Derrick Henry continued to be a beast on the ground for Baltimore with 24 carries for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. Zay Flowers, the leading receiver for Baltimore, he had 132 yards. And the Ravens, man, they just really, their offense came to play. Washington's definitely been a more offensive team here, and it kind of showed today where their defense just wasn't really able to stop Baltimore. They did intercept Lamar one time, but that was really the only time that they turned the ball over. They did force one fumble, but Baltimore recovered it. Some other receivers here. Rashad Bateman had 71 yards. Mark Andrews, finally, a lot of people have been talking about Mark Andrews, saying, cut him in fantasy. Maybe still cut him. It's only one game, but just how he has not had a good start to the year. Well, he had 66 yards today, and including a touchdown, 4 targets, same as Isaiah Likely. So maybe Mark Andrews kind of retaking that tight end 1 role back over. And just when you have a guy like Derrick Henry, that's really the main standout for me here today. So many people say don't pay running backs, rightfully so. Well, Baltimore took a chance on this guy. And it's paying off dividends. 132 yards, 2 touchdowns, averaging 5.5 yards per carry. Like that's pretty good. On the other side, Austin Eckler, that's another guy that's like opposite end of the coin. He only had 21 yards on 9 carries. Jaden Daniels is actually the leading rusher for Washington with 22 yards. For them, who stuck out today, Terry McLaurin, he finally found the end zone a couple times here. 2 touchdowns for him on 6 catches for 53 yards. Zach Ertz was the leading receiver yardage-wise. He had 68 yards receiving. Noah Brown also had 58 yards. So for me, the reason why I have Baltimore as a winner is because, a lot of people are kind of writing them off after their 0-2 start, and they've not won 4 straight games. They've looked really good, and to be honest, I think it's pretty clear. Like, they are the favorite to win the AFC North. They've already retaken over. Pittsburgh is also 4-2, but let's be honest. Watching Pittsburgh play versus watching Baltimore play is 2 completely different teams. I'm definitely taking Baltimore if those 2 teams go head-to-head, and that's, coming from me as a Steelers fan. So that's why I got Baltimore as my first winner. They just played really well today, showed, that they're still going to be a force to be reckoned with in the AFC. They were top seed in the AFC last year, so winner number 1 for me. Then we're moving on to the NFC for my second winner. I'm going with Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 51-27 win for the Buccaneers. Granted, no Derek Carr for the Saints. Spencer Rattler made his debut today, throwing for 243 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. Baker Mayfield, man, he was slinging the rock, 325 yards, threw for 4 TDs. Did get picked off 3 times, so that's not great, but him and Godwin had a great connection. Godwin had 125 yards and 2 touchdowns, so good win for the Bucs. They had 594, almost 600 total yards, whereas New Orleans only had 303. And while, like I mentioned, Baker did turn the ball over 3 times, New Orleans also had 3 turnovers. So even in the turnover differential, and that's kind of what paid big dividends here. But they now fall to 2-4 after being 2-0. People were really high on them. 4 straight losses for the Saints. Tough scenes there. The Bucs, on the other hand, man, they're looking like a really good team. Like, they are 4-2. They're tied with Atlanta for first in the South. Could have gone either way that game they played against Atlanta. They've also had really good rushing. Both Sean Tucker and Bucky Irving have put one in the end zone today. Sean Tucker with 163 yards rushing, Bucky Irving with 81. So he's really been a dog. Irving especially, but Tucker really took the main workload today. Alvin Kamara, and they stifled him. Tampa Bay stifled him because he only had 40 yards on 13 carries. Did get in the end zone once. Like I mentioned, receiving, Chris Godwin led the way, 125 yards, 2 touchdowns, so really good game for him. That was really the main standout because, I mean, Sean Tucker had the next most yards receiving, and then Ryan Miller, and then Mike Evans was third, so not really a great game for him. That's kind of tough. Want to probably try to unlock him more, but New Orleans was kind of, all over him all day. So being able to connect with Godwin the way he was, that's why it's important to have multiple weapons. So Tampa Bay just fine in their win there. And they, now like I mentioned, 4-2, tied for first in the NFC South. And I think, they're really going to be competitive going all the way through that division. I think they could very easily win it. Then my third winner, their counterparts in the South, who they're tied with, the Atlanta Falcons. So Atlanta, they knock off Carolina 38-20. Maybe Carolina's not the greatest of teams, but Atlanta just looked really good in this win today. Kirk Cousins threw for 225 yards and a touchdown. Tyler Algier ran for 105 yards and a touchdown, with Bijan Robinson also running for 95 and 2 touchdowns. So the running game was really going for the Falcons. Chuba Hubbard also had a good game for Carolina. The rushing game on their side, 92 yards, didn't punch any in, but 95 yards, pretty good game. Andy Dalton passing for Carolina threw for 221 with 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. So he still got a little bit. Maybe I don't really know if I'm Carolina if I would go with Andy Dalton or Bryce Young, just because, I mean, Andy Dalton, yes, probably gives you a better chance to win football games, but if you're Carolina, do you really want to be winning football games right now? Honestly, the answer is probably no. There's kind of a lot wrong with this team. Receiving-wise, Drake London led the way for Atlanta with 74 yards and a touchdown. Kyle Pitts also had 70 yards as well, so good game for him. Wasn't able to get in the end zone, but a couple big catches, averaging 23 yards a catch. That's pretty good. Deontay Johnson scored a touchdown for Carolina, as well as having 78 yards receiving, so good game for him. And yeah, I mean, Atlanta they look good in this game. Like they got to be feeling really good about themselves. Atlanta has not made the playoffs since 2017, hasn't won the division since 2016, and they are very much like firmly in control to have a chance to do both those things. They win the turnover battle 2-1, so their defense has been playing really well. Young Ho Koo knocked in a couple of kicks. He's one of the better kickers in the league. So Atlanta all around, man, like they're finally starting to get it clicking. I'd be really happy if I was a Falcons fan. I know my guy Matt Tuicy. Hopefully going to have him back on this week for some picks. He was really happy on Twitter today. He's a Falcons fan, so happy for him. So that's why I'm giving the Falcons my third winner. Then we're going to go back over to the AFC for my next winner. I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Chargers. So the Chargers were another team. Started 2-0. Then they lost 2 straight before, they had their bye last week. But they come back. They knock off Denver 23-16. Justin Herbert finally, looked healthy again, played a good game, 237 yards and a touchdown. J.K. Dobbins was feasting on the ground with 96 yards and a touchdown. And Bo Nix didn't play bad for Denver. Like, Denver is going to be a solid team. They're going to be a scrappy team. They now fall to 3-3, so they're definitely better than I thought coming into the year. Bo Nix threw for 216 yards, 2 touchdowns, but did have an interception. He also was Denver's leading rusher with 61 yards as well. So Herbert, like I mentioned, looked good. Had a nice throw to Kimani Vidal, 38-yard touchdown pass in the first quarter. If they can get Herbert going, playing well, then that's going to be huge for the Chargers. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to beat Kansas City in that division. It's Kansas City's division for the taking by far, but very good game from Herbert today. The Chargers also won the turnover battle. They didn't turn the ball over, took care of the ball. That's very big, especially in games like this. Low-scoring game, you got to take care of the ball. You only get so many chances. Denver, on the other hand, they turned the ball over twice, like I mentioned. Nix threw an interception, and then Javonte Williams lost a fumble. So kind of looking here, nothing really else standing out on the Chargers side for me. Simi Fehoko was the leading receiver with 44 yards, but Ladd McConkey also had 43, and like I mentioned, Kimani Vidal had that 38-yard touchdown to give him 40 yards. I mean, very kind of balanced passing attack here for the Chargers. No one really standing out. Josh Palmer also with 38 yards, so A lot of guys catching the ball, but no big numbers. On the Denver side, Devon Veely was the leader with 78 yards. And then Cortland Sutton had 53 yards and a touchdown. And then Troy Franklin, 31 yards, including a 29-yard touchdown catch. So good games for them. Like I mentioned, really nothing doing running-wise for Denver. Bo Nix was their leader with 61 yards rushing. Javonte Williams only had 23 yards and lost that fumble. So not a great game for them. And like I mentioned, J.K. Dobbins really has had a resurgence here with the Chargers. 96 yards rushing, a touchdown. Good game for him. He's punched the ball in the end zone now a couple times this year. So that's really good to see, as an Ohio State fan, former Buckeye, happy for him. So that's kind of all I got on the Chargers. I mean, nice solid win. Divisional wins are always good. Like really, I think that's going to help them contend for second in the division, help them, potentially get a wild card. Then finally, this one might be a questionable winner, but I wanted to mention them. Going to Cincinnati Bengals is my last winner. The Sunday night game, bit of a snooze fest, not the most entertaining game. I was kind of more locked in on the Dodgers-Mets, but that game also kind of turned out to be a blowout for the Dodgers. So Bengals, they knock off the Giants 17-7. Joe Burrow, man, he put the wheels on. 55 yards rushing, including a 47-yard touchdown in the first half, and that was the only score of the first half. But for me, what's standing out, Cincinnati's defense has just been getting absolutely torched. And the fact that they held the Giants to only 7 points this game, that's honestly a win for them. I mean, the Giants did move the ball a little bit more. They had 309 yards and 24 first downs, while the Bengals only had 13 first downs. So Giants were moving the ball, but Cincinnati had more of a bend don't break. They did force one turnover. They turned the ball over once themselves. The Bengals did. So even on the turnover battle, but Burrow wasn't able to connect anyone for a touchdown. His only touchdown was that rushing one, 200, like I mentioned, 55 yards, and then Chase Brown punched in the other Cincinnati touchdown, 53 yards rushing, but his long 30-yard touchdown run was the difference for him. Burrow in the air had 208 yards passing, no touchdowns, no interceptions. So, all right game. QB rating of 89.6, a lot better than Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones had 205 yards, no touchdowns, but an interception. His QB rating was only 57.5, so not very good. Daniel Jones also was just similar to Burrow, also the Giants' leading rusher. He had 56 yards rushing, and then Tyrone Tracy Jr. is their second leading rusher. He had 50 yards, including the touchdown for the Giants. On the receiving end, T. Higgins, 77 yards on 7 receptions, caught all 7 of his targets. Jamar Chase, 5 receptions, 72 yards, pretty good game for him. Andre Isivash had 2 catches for 36 yards, so spreading the ball around a little bit in Cincinnati. They got some good receivers. Too bad none of them can get in the end zone, but good game yardage-wise, I'd say. Darius Slayton was the leader for the Giants with 57 yards receiving. And then Tyrone Tracy also had 57 as well, with Wan'Dale Robinson also having 50. So I guess maybe this game I could have more given the Giants a loser, but they have looked better the past 2 weeks than they did this week. Do I think they're going to be contending for the NFC East? No, they'll probably still be the last-place team in that division, but they've looked kind of decent, I'd say, and Cincinnati just really needed this win. Improving now to 2-4 on the year. I mean, Baltimore's 4-2, so they're still 2 games back. Pittsburgh's 4-2 as well, so 2 games back of the 2 leaders in their division. But if you're gonna have a chance to make the playoffs, like Cincinnati's expectation was to before the beginning of this season, you got to win a game like this, even though it was scrappy, hard fought. It's good to see maybe they can win some low scoring games. They're not just gonna have to outscore everybody and have Burrow do everything. So, Bengals are my final winner of the weekend. Now let's move on to my losers. So moving on now to my losers. For the first one, we're starting with the early game. We're starting with the London game. I'm going with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now this is one maybe I could have given the Bears a winner, but I picked the Jags to win this matchup just because I had, granted they did end up going over later due to Hurricane Milton, but the Jaguars, they play 2 games in London every year. They should be used to playing in London. I thought they'd come out ready to play. They surprised Buffalo. Yeah, they beat Buffalo there last year. And this Jaguars team is just so disappointing to me because I honestly thought Trust me, I love C.J. Stroud. I love the Texans. They're obviously really good. I think they're probably one of the contenders, like top contenders. Honestly, I'd say probably top contender behind the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl right now in the AFC. But I kind of thought people were just anointing him too fast. Like he had a great end of the year last year. Obviously, let him to the playoffs. Like Texans peaked at the right time. But that's kind of what the Jaguars did 2 years ago. And I kind of thought, all right, maybe like let's chill out here because people did the same thing last year. Just assumed Jaguars were going to win the Super Bowl, or not win the Super Bowl, win the division. Pete Prisco did think they could win the Super Bowl, which is kind of funny. He thought they were going like 13-4, and then they missed playoffs. So just this Jacksonville team just so disappointing to me. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is like the best quarterback in that draft class, and honestly, at this point, that's really not saying much. He threw for 234 yards and 2 touchdowns today, but he was outplayed by Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams threw for 226, 4 touchdowns. Also did have an interception as well. But I was just watching Caleb play, was just a lot more impressed with him. I mean, yeah, his rating was 124.4 to Trevor Williams only 91.8. So the Bears just as a team just looked a lot better than the Jaguars, which obviously, I live here in Chicago. People are very high on the Bears. I was high on the Bears. Like, I still think they're going to be competing for a wild card. I kind of thought they could. I'd say I'm probably more confident in competing in a wild card now than I was coming into the year. But, they look like they can hang with their division. They're 4-2. So is Green Bay. Like, their entire division's 4-2 or better, which is kind of crazy. But, yeah, they're playing really well. DeAndre Swift's 91 yards and a touchdown today. Good game for him. Like I mentioned, Caleb Williams, 4 touchdowns. 2 of those were to Cole Kmet, who had 70 yards. The other 2 to Keenan Allen, who's back now healthy. He had 41 yards. Rome Odunze caught his 2 targets for 40 yards receiving. So, solid game from him as well. Obviously, maybe like a little bit more yardage. But, Caleb was getting the ball around. DeAndre Swift caught a couple balls. Roshan Johnson, DJ Moore, getting a lot of different guys involved. On the Jacksonville side, just a lot of balls. Evan Ingram, 102 yards. Gabe Davis was the one. He had the 2 touchdowns for Jacksonville receiving, but only 45 yards. And then Christian Kirk, not a great game for him, only 39 yards. So, just not great. Tank Bigsby, people were like high on, didn't do anything, only 24 yards. Dearness Johnson was the leading rusher for Jacksonville with 28. Or like that's nothing. You can't have that in Jacksonville. That's less than 50 yards, or no, just over 50 yards rushing. But that's honestly just unacceptable. Well, and then you throw in Lawrence. Lawrence ran for 17 yards. Etienne had 3 carries for -1 yards. Like, how does that happen? So, just a horrible game from Jacksonville. They also turned the ball over. I mean, Evan Ingram lost a fumble. Tank Bigsby lost fumble, at least he was recovered. So just not a good game from Jacksonville. I mean, didn't take care of the ball. So I'm giving them a loser. I'd say their chances of winning the AFC South, like that's not true. I'm probably, if I had to, like, I'm gonna release tier rankings. I was debating doing that as a video, but I think I'm just gonna like tweet them out, just since like the game tomorrow doesn't really affect my tiers. Jacksonville might honestly be my like tanking for the number 1 pick tier because they're that bad. Like, it's them in Tennessee are like bottom feeders in that division. Like, do not think they're gonna be doing anything. Next loser, honestly, probably just as disappointing team, the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland once again falls. They lose to Philadelphia 20-16. The city of Philadelphia is reeling right now. I mean, they're so upset about the Phillies. Their coach is chirping fans. They won the game and are playing at home, and their coach is going at fans. That's how much they are on the hot seat. And what did the Browns do? They still lose. Deshaun Watson, 168 yards. At least he didn't turn the ball over today, but only 168 yards passing. That is horrible. Their leading receiver is Amari Cooper with 42 yards. Like, just what are they doing? They stink. Like, put in Jameis, please. I got fake information. Somebody online tweeted that they were playing Jameis this week, and I was like, oh, let's go. Like that would be way more fun than what this team is right now. Like, it's just so tough to watch. Like, they're not a good watch at all. A.J. Brown came back, and he was unlocked for the Eagles. He had touchdown, 116 yards. Jalen Hurts in total threw for 264 and 2 touchdowns. Took care of the ball, no interceptions, so good for him. Not a great rushing game for the Eagles. Saquon Barkley was the leader with only 47 yards rushing, and then Jalen Hurts with 33. They ran a couple tush pushes, still working without Jason Kelsey. Jalen Hurts was 126.1 rating. Deshaun Watson, 90.5. I mean, that's maybe not horrible, but his QBR was only 34.6. That's not good. That's not good. Jalen Hurts had a 73.1 QBR. So, not a good game from Deshaun. He stinks. Their leading rusher was Pierre Strong with 43 yards, and then Donta Foreman at 31. Like, nobody did anything. Jerome Ford only had 14 yards. Granted, he left the game, so that's also why. That's tough scenes for him. Like I mentioned, Amari Cooper 42 yards. Jerry Jeudy, 1 catch for 35 yards. Pierre Strong had 35 yards, and David Njoku had 31 yards on 5 receptions. Like, just no like big plays. Like, they don't make big plays. Like, they didn't force any turnovers. Like, I just honestly don't know what's going on. I don't really know where they go. Like I said, I think you just got to get rid of Deshaun Watson. And I mean, it's just so tough. Like, his team made the playoffs last year. Now they're 1-5. Like, what happened? I have no clue. I have no clue. I don't think James Draws does either. So, Cleveland Browns, second loser. Can't even beat Philly when they're reeling. So that's tough. Then we're going to the team in the Eagles division for my third loser. This was just flat out embarrassing. Maybe even worse than the other two. The Dallas Cowboys lose 47-9 at home to the Detroit Lions on Jerry Jones' birthday. How rude. It was their owner's birthday. You know, they got him a cake before the game. The Fox crew did, you know, hyping him up, being like, yeah, let's go. Let's get a win for your birthday. Dallas Cowboys are 0-3 at home this year in Jerry's world. They do not like Jerry, I guess. 0-3 at home. 3-3 overall, but 0-3 at home. Like, usually it would be flipped. Like, it's very rare you see a team that's 3-0 on the road and 0-3 at home. Dak Prescott did not play well today. 178 yards passing, but 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. Same thing again, no rushing for the Cowboys. Rico Dowdle was their leading rusher, 25 yards. And then Ezekiel Elliott only had 17 yards on 8 carries. Like, I love the guy, but washed. Why are you giving him that many carries? And Detroit, so they lost in Dallas. It was like one of those Saturday night games late in the year last year where they tried running a trick play. I forget what offensive lineman it was, but like reported to be eligible, and then the refs like just missed it, so he never was eligible. And so then like this touchdown that they scored on this trick play to take the lead then was ruled an eligible man downfield, like did not count. So they were running all sorts of stuff. I mean, they had a double lateral pass that Sam Laporta then caught for a touchdown. They were running like they had a ball thrown to Penei Sewell. I don't think it didn't end up counting for the touchdown, but like they were just running all sorts of stuff. They run up the score. I mean, 47-9. This is another one I probably could have gave Detroit a winner. However, they do lose Aiden Hutchinson. Just gruesome leg injury. He's me done for the year. You hate to see that. That's a pretty demoralizing loss, especially for their defense. But we'll see. I mean, Detroit's a very like next man up mentality team. That's how Dan Campbell is. I think they're gonna be just fine, despite losing one of their better players. That is a tough loss, but I think they'll be okay. But the Cowboys, on the other hand, man, they gotta get it turned around. Like I said, Philly is not that good. Dallas can definitely still win this division. Washington, they're fun, they're young right now, but I don't think they're capable of winning the division. Like, Dallas can very much win this division, but figure out how to win a stinking game at home. Like, what are you doing here? CeeDee Lamb did have 7 receptions for 89 yards for the Cowboys, and then Jalen Tolbert had 43 yards receiving as well. Rico Dowdle added 30 as well, and then Kevontae Turpin 24. Like, nobody with really big numbers outside of CeeDee. On the Detroit side, Jameson Williams, 76 yards and a touchdown. Khalif Raymond had 73 yards. Tim Patrick had 68 yards. And Laporta, like I mentioned, that one big catch, 52 yards for a touchdown. Amon-Ra, they kind of did shut down Amon-Ra, but like I said, they have all the I just listed 4 guys before Amon-Ra. So he had 4 receptions, 37 yards, and a touchdown. Still got in the end zone. So good game there for Detroit. Dallas, on the other hand, what are we doing? Like getting embarrassed that bad at home. That's just tough to see. For my final 2 losers, we're going over to the AFC. First one, Tennessee Titans. This was more just kind of one just to even it out. Like I kind of was mentioning with Jacksonville earlier, Tennessee's not going to compete for this division, but you kind of would at least like to see them win this game against a Indianapolis Colts team in the division. Will Levis, man, I just don't know what's going on with him. I mean, he was another guy too. Like last year, like late in the year, looked good. Does not look good. Not only threw for 95 yards today. Did throw for a touchdown. Then went crazy with his Spider-Man celebration. That was insane. He's just like a walking meme too is the problem. Like what's bro doing? But then he also threw an interception. I mean, under 100 yards passing. That's horrible. His quarterback rating was 63. He got outplayed by Joe Flacco, who's like ancient. Like I'd be one thing. It was like Anthony Richardson. Like, okay, that happens. Another young QB. Maybe Richardson's better, but no, he got outplayed by Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco threw for 189 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did have an interception as well. For the Colts, rushing wise, Tyler Goodman led the way, 51 yards. Trey Sermon, 29 yards. So like, not a great game rushing, but Josh Downs did catch a touchdown as well as 61 yards. Mo Alley Cox had 41 yards. I love Mo Alley Cox's story because I always remember him. I'm a big college basketball guy. He was on the VCU team that went to the Final Four, and now the fact that he's in the NFL and has been in the NFL for like a good amount now is pretty funny to me. And then Michael Pittman was the third receiver for the Colts. He had 35 yards and a touchdown. So good game. Good game to get in the end zone for him. On the Tennessee side, the only guy to get in the end zone, Nick Westbrook-Enike. He had 1 catch for 9 yards, so that was his only catch. Like DeAndre Hopkins had 4 catches, 54 yards. All right game for him. Tyler Boyd, 3 catches for 19 yards. Tony Pollard did have a good game on the ground for Tennessee. I'll give him that. 93 yards and a touchdown. And then Tyjae Spears also ran for 27 yards as well. So Tennessee, man, it's just so frustrating, like drafting a young quarterback and just that he's kind of looked as bad and just been as memeable as he has. So hopefully they can get that turned around. I don't think it's going to be this year. Granted, I don't know if they really expected to be competitive this year. Maybe some people thought they would. I did not. So final loser, Las Vegas Raiders. That team's a mess, man. I thought, Antonio Pierce, he did a really good job like leading that team, being a leader of men last year down the stretch. So it seems like things are kind of falling apart. Devontae Adams, like I said, he was out today. He's probably not going to play for the Raiders again. We have Max Crosby. He gets a sack. He's pushing a coach after getting a sack. Like, he doesn't even seem to be there, and he's like their like guy, like their like leader. So when you see stuff like that coming from him, that's pretty concerning. So they fall today. The Steelers, I don't know if I mentioned the final score, 32-13. And that's what I'm saying. I really wasn't even that impressed with like the Steelers today. Like, Justin Fields was not that impressive. Threw for 145 yards. Like, that's what I'm saying. As a Steelers fan, I'm not even like up and like excited about this win. Like, that's just like we beat a inferior team. So Najee did actually have a good game. Like, Steelers rushing game was good today. I'll give them that. Najee had 14 carries, 106 yards, and a touchdown. George Pickens only 53 yards receiving. That's what I'm saying. Like, they didn't do anything really spectacular. Justin Fields did have 2 rushing touchdowns. He is good with his legs. I'll give him that. 59 yards rushing, like I said, 2 touchdowns. On the Raiders side, like Aiden O'Connell, 227 yards, touchdown, but also threw an interception. Offensively, just not really a whole lot going. Alexander Madison had 33 yards on 14 carries and a touchdown. Brock Bowers, leading receiver, 9 receptions for 71 yards. DJ Turner had 37 yards. Like, when your rookie tight end's getting the most yards by far, that's not really super great. Alexander Madison was the 3rd leading receiver, like a running back with 32 yards. Not great game. And it wasn't really a great game past Pittsburgh, like I mentioned. Pickens, leader, 53 yards. Calvin Austin had 36, and then Najee was their 3rd guy, 16 yards. Freiermuth also had 16 yards. But their defense did recover, or I'm sorry, never mind. That was their offense almost lost 3 fumbles, but they recovered them. I can't read. I'm so sorry, chat. Dante Jackson did have a touchdown, though, so Steelers defense did force some turnovers, which, I mean, a game like this, at times, that's kind of all you really have to do, is just take care of the ball. Or no, they did have 2 fumble recoveries. I can't read. They did recover one themselves, though. But yeah, like Oakland or Las Vegas losing the turnover battle 3-0. Just not a good game from them. Yeah, I don't really know. There's not a lot to say about this game. It was kind of a gross football game. It was one of those similar to Sunday night game. I'm like, why did I watch this? But because I love ball, that's why I watched it. So then closing out here, last 2 games from Sunday. Didn't have either of these as winners or losers. Houston Texans, they destroyed the Patriots 41-21. Drake May made his debut, and honestly, he didn't look terrible. Threw for 243 yards and 3 touchdowns, but did also throw 2 interceptions and fumbled the ball once on a strip sack. C.J. Stroud, man, he just keeps hooping. 3 touchdowns for him, 1 interception, though. And then Joe Mixon had a good game, ran for 102 yards and touchdown. And then Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs both caught touchdowns for the Texans. Good game for them. And then the last one, Green Bay beats Arizona 34-13 at home. Jordan Love hooping. Really good game for him. 258 yards passing and 4 TDs, including connecting with Romeo Doubs, who was back. They hooked up twice for 2 touchdowns. And then Jalen Watson and Christian Watson and Jalen Reed both scored touchdowns as well. Arizona also lost 3 fumbles, so just not a great game from them. So that's going to wrap it up. It's going to wrap it up for week 6 here. My recap, we got one more game tomorrow night between the Jets and the Bills. Should be a good one. If you haven't checked my picks video out, granted, it's going to be old by now, but actually I had a pretty good week. I went 10-3 so far this week. Have the Jets tomorrow as my last pick. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to drop a like on the video. Comment your winners and losers down below. And while you're down there, make sure to subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure to follow and rate the show. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.